Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So today's video is going to be something a little bit different. We're not going to be looking at a unit, but we're going to be in fact looking at you, the player. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one of my top tips / tricks for winning games of 40k. And no, it's nothing to do with like army lists or, well, army lists are kind of part of it, but it's nothing to do with sort of what units or combos or formations or blah, blah, blah. It's nothing to do with that. It's purely down to something that you can do, or a concept that I have come up with over many, many years of playing 40k, over many, many years of playing tournament 40k, and it's this concept of psyching out your opponent. It's this concept of winning that the sort of psychological battle that is going on between you and your opponent in 40k. So there's a term that me and my brother have come up with for this, and we played a lot of tournaments together. And I don't know where this phrase came from. I don't know where this phrase came from, but we call it putting the voodoo in them. So it's not meant to be inappropriate anyway. Where I think it actually came from is from when we watched Predator 2. And in Predator 2 there's this bit where this guy is this gang member is trying to scare this other rival gang member, and he's doing voodoo magic on him, and he's absolutely like terrifying him. He's psyching him out. And if voodoo magic isn't real, well, at least I hope it's not. But the whole point is that he's doing the voodoo magic on his opponent to completely and utterly psychologically cripple him, just to terrify him. And that's where I think the phrase came from. I don't know for sure. So we always have this phrase of if you absolutely psychologically destroy your opponent, you put the voodoo into him. You put the voodoo into him. And so what do I mean by this? How do I mean by like psychologically destroy your opponent or psychologically beat your opponent? Essentially what it comes down to is 40k is this game of tactics, and it's this dice rolling, and you can do this math hammer, and you can do all this list tailoring and math hammering and all these things. But what it comes down to is it's you versus somebody else. And one of the oldest things, this is going to sound like really deep, one of the oldest things in warfare is just making your opponent just wanting to give up and just call it a day. It's not about killing your opponent. It's just about making him not want to fight anymore, or at the very least give up. So there are a number of ways that you can psych out your opponents. The first and most obvious way is just to deal an absolutely crippling blow. So if you get turn 1 and you absolutely alpha strike your opponent, and you do so much damage to him that he goes, right, there's no point in playing on, I give up. And already in his mind he's given up. He's already gone, I can't recover from this damage. Now, so that's one way of putting the voodoo into your opponent. That's one way of just doing so much damage to him. That's relatively easy for Guard to do in 8th edition, but that relies on us kind of getting the first turn, and I think most Guard players know that we don't get first turn in 8th edition a lot of the time. Chapter Approved has helped things, but generally speaking, Imperial Guard players are going second. So another way that you can put the voodoo into your opponent is by not really like showing any emotional feelings towards taking lots of casualties. So if your opponent, for example, alpha strikes you, and he comes down and he blows away half your infantry in one turn, takes off takes off 1 or 2 of your tanks in one go, and he does deletes like 500 points of your stuff in one go. Just the way, and I learned this from 7th edition, especially because in 7th edition there's a lot of alpha strike. We're talking Skyhammer, we're talking Riptide spam. You just take those casualties off. You just take them off. You take, I lost a full platoon. Yeah. And you can even throw in some sort of just like throwaway remarks like, acceptable casualties. acceptable casualties. You just like, you take them off. You don't even show them. You just pick them up. You casually put them down to one side, and you're like, yeah. So what else you got? Any other shooting? Any other shooting? That's my favourite go-to phrase. When you know your opponent has finished his shooting phase. And you have actually, maybe you've taken a lot of casualties, but you're acting like you haven't taken any. You've acted like, that was acceptable losses. That was nothing to me. And even though you know he's finished a shooting phase, you say to him, any other shooting? And he goes, no, that's it. And you go, oh wow. Got off lightly there. That's what you say. And that plants a seed of doubt in your opponent's head. Because your opponent was just there thinking to himself, yes, just smashed that Imperial Guard player, just deleted that blob of guardsmen, took out that tank, that was great. And suddenly you're there on the other side of the table to him going, yeah, that was pretty good, got off pretty lightly there, I thought you were going to do more. He's going to be thinking, well, I thought I did pretty well, but actually, now I think about it, there's still quite a lot of Imperial Guard on the table. Did I even do that much? And so that sort of playing those psychological games, you've got those little tips and tricks that you can do. So the first way of psyching your opponent out, of putting the voodoo into him, putting the fear of the Emperor into him, is to just hit him hard and really, really smash him. First turn, smash him. That can sometimes be enough to make people give up. The second way is, you're not being arrogant here. You're not being arrogant. I don't want you to be there like saying, you didn't do anything to me. No, that's not going to work. That's the key. That is the key. If you start being arrogant and start saying, oh yeah, you didn't do anything to me there. Oh yeah, that's not going to work. That's going to actually anti-voodoo your opponent, because your opponent's going to think you're a prick. And because he thinks you're a prick, what that means is he's going to fight even harder to beat you, because he wants to beat you because you're arrogant. So don't be arrogant. The key is to say it in like a casual throwaway, even a little joke, throw in a little chuckle, a nervous little chuckle. I know it sounds like we're getting a bit deep here, but trust me, the psychological shit does work. So you don't want to be like, oh yeah, no worry. You don't want to be like that. You want to go, whew, thought you were going to do a bit more to me then. Jesus, I think I got away with it a bit lightly there. A little casual conversation, little just throwaway comment puts the seed of doubt into your opponent. Now the second stage to this is, if possible, and this is again sometimes enough to just make your opponent just give up in the back of their mind, subconsciously just give up. It's once you receive the alpha strike, you hit your opponent back in your turn even harder, and you do loads of damage to him, because that really, really gets to people, because they feel like they've had an amazing turn. They're riding high, little seeded down in the back of the head, but they're riding high, and suddenly the Imperial Guard gun line opens up and it smashes them, and your opponent just in one turn sees his all his gains just taken away from him. And that will really, really upset him. That will make him go, well, what's the fucking point? I can't do that alpha strike again. I've done as much damage as I possibly can do. And now most of it's just been taken away. Oh, I'm never going to win. Blah. And the reason why that's important is because a lot of tournament players will build their lists just to do damage. And once you absorb the damage and then do damage back to him, it makes them lose sight of the game. Because at the end of the day, the point of the game is to win. And the majority of our missions out there, especially with chapter approved now, the majority of the missions are objective based. The 7th edition taught me this trick really well. You can barely kill anything of your opponents and still get a draw or a win, because your opponent was so interested on killing things, but that's not the mission most of the time. Most of the time, killing things isn't important. So that's one way of putting the voodoo into your opponent, and that's two ways. The third way kind of follows on from the second way, which is, if your opponent is gaining on you all game, he's been ahead all game. You get into turn 3, turn 4, and you're thinking, God, you know, what's going on? Like, you know, your opponent, sorry, I should say it's getting to turn 3, turn 4, and your opponent is riding high. He's been dominating your game. But if you're able to start, how to put this, if you're able to start making a comeback, often it will lead your opponent to panicking and make silly mistakes. So that's sort of the 3 ways I want to talk about of putting the voodoo into your opponent. 1, absolutely smashing it, and 2, just being able to just shrug off casualties. It will really, really get your opponent. And the third thing is taking away your opponent's lead. Like if he thinks he's doing really well, then you just take it away. They're sort of the 3, sort of 2, 2.5. So one thing that I want to say is, we're talking about the psychological warfare concept, is how to protect yourself from being voodooed. We've all been there, especially in the days of editions gone by when people could just delete half your army in one go. Alpha Strike isn't such a big deal anymore, but there are those moments, especially in 8th edition, when, you know, 20 berserkers get a turn 1 charge on you. Tyranids popping out the ground getting turn 1 charges on you. You're getting absolutely blown off the table in chunks. The key to just not being voodooed is to just play to the mission. You've got to keep your eyes on the prize. I am guilty of this. I am guilty of this. And it's taken me many years to learn this trick, which is, and it doesn't seem like an obvious one. It just seems like an obvious one, but it's, don't panic. When your opponent drops a load of units into your deployment zone, or starts getting up in your business, or just starts doing lots of damage to you, your instinct will be to hurt him back. Your instinct will be to do as much damage possible back to him. But what you've got to ask yourself is this: do you need to you need to place your shots carefully. You need to make your moves carefully, because sometimes your opponent's trying to voodoo you, and he drops that big unit of Terminators right in the front of you, right slap bang in the middle of your army, and does loads of damage to you. And what you've got to ask yourself is, do I need to kill those Terminators? Or do I need to kill those Khorne Berserkers? Because he might have dropped them down, and I've done this to people with my Scions, and it works really well. You drop down on the flank where there's no objectives. There's nothing important. But you drop down on there, and it distracts your opponent, and your opponent starts moving squads away from his objective, because he wants to kill those Scions. Or in your case, you want to kill those Terminators. Fuck, there's 10 Terminators in my face. I've got to deal with those. Actually, do you? Very important question. Do you actually need to target those Terminators or those Berserkers or whatever the hell they are? Your opponent may be trying to pull you away from the objectives. Maybe trying to cause you to lose sight of the mission. And if he does that, and you start panicking, and you get to turn 5 or turn 3, maybe you kill the Terminators in 2 or 3 turns. You get to the end of turn 3, and you're like, yes, I finally killed all that stuff that was in my face, doing loads of damage to me. Or doing some damage to me, I should say. And he gets to turn 4, gets to turn 5, and you're like, well, hang on. There's no way in the turns that I've got left I'm going to get onto the objectives I need to get onto. Or I'm going to be able to score the Maelstrom points I need to score. And you look around, suddenly your opponent's sat there on 3 or 4 objectives, or he's got all the Maelstrom points coming out of his ass. And you're there thinking to yourself, well, at least I killed the big scary stuff. But that doesn't matter. I've done it. I've won a game with a lone company commander. A lone company commander versus Wolfstar back in the day. My opponent thought he tabled me. I threw everything I had into that wolf start apart from one command squad who only had the commander left, and I chucked him into the opposite corner of the board because I was winning on Maelstrom. My opponent gets to turn 5, finally kills the last platoon, and the game ends. It's like, right, I've tabled you. It's like, no, you haven't. I got my commander here. I've done it to my opponents, and your opponent will do it to you. So that's the key. That's the key to resisting the voodoo. Sometimes your opponent will do an absolutely horrendous amount of damage to you. You have to take a second, brush it off. Psychologically, just understand that doesn't matter, and that you can still win the game playing to the mission. So, I hope this sort of concept of psychological warfare has been useful to you guys. I hope it's sort of like, it might sound weird, but it is sort of like next level tournament tactics. It's if you're not going to be that worried about voodooing your mates in the basement battles. You're not going to be that bothered about that. You don't really want to. You're there for a good time. But if you're there going to a tournament, you need these extra little tips and tricks. It makes all the difference up on even just the medium and high level tables. It makes all the difference. And like I said, the key is not to be arrogant. You want to psychologically cripple your opponent. You don't want to harden his thoughts against you, because if you're an arrogant prick, he'll want to beat you even harder. So, but it's just about this concept I want to put in. I want to put down there, which is you just want to make your opponent just give up. Just no, I've had enough. No. And he might even still be able to win it, but you need to make him lose sight of the mission. You need to put the fear of the Emperor into him. You need to put the voodoo into him. You need to scare him. It's not even scaring him, it's more just about making him give up. How many games have we had? This is the last thing I'm going to mention. How many times have you played a game, especially in 8th edition with Imperial Guard, how many times have you played a game where you've just had an absolutely blistering turn, you've done a lot of damage to your opponent, and your opponent literally says, oh, I'm going to give up, I concede. And it's only like turn 2 or 3. And you have to say to your opponent, oh no, come on mate, carry on. It's only a game, it's only for fun. See what damage you can do. Carry on. Come on mate, come on. How many games have you had that? I bet you it's quite a few. When you've had to insist your opponent carries on. Come on mate, it's fine. And your opponent might have been able to win it. If he just played his absolute damage, he might have been able to win it, but he gave up. That's the concept that we're talking about here. Oh, I concede. I can't be bothered. I concede. You've got your opponent voodooed when he says the immortal words. It's just pointless carrying on. They're the immortal words. It's just pointless. When he shrugs his shoulders, crosses his arms, goes, it's just pointless. Fucking Imperial Guard. You've voodooed him then. I think you guys are hopefully starting to understand the concepts I'm getting over here, because they're kind of abstract. They're not tangible. They're not dice in the hand, models on the table kind of concepts. These are more sort of psychological, theoretical concept. But yeah, next time we go to a tournament, try some of these psychological tricks. Try playing down your losses, playing up your opponent's losses. That's the kind of thing that we're looking at. So I know it's difficult for me to tell you how to do these kind of things, because obviously different opponents react different ways to different things, but it's just about making your opponent want to give up. But anyway, I'm waffling on a little bit now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope the concept makes sense to you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.